If our coach comes to me and says, hey, we just graduated 4 of our 5 offensive linemen, and he says next year we want to go to a 5-wide system, okay, well, I'm going to ask the questions like, what are the demands that you think are going to change? Like the tempo of how we play, what are you going to ask of our O-line that's different from last year, so that way we can match training up to the demands of what they're going to be asked.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Staff Meeting Podcast. Today, me and Dan dive into some training philosophies, things we line up on, things we view differently, but ultimately we get into the way we frame up training. We also unexpectedly dive into some nutrition talk, very surface level, but mainly on how we bucket kids in the off season, trying to get them ready for the demands of their individual game.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode. As you can tell, we are kind of going off the rails a little bit. Now, like I said, we in our intro episodes, we both talked about how we want it to be real. So one of those things, we actually enjoy talking to each other. So sometimes, like, we might get off a little bit and start laughing a little, but that's okay because we're real. Just like our regular staff meetings, we want it to be fun, we want to be engaging, and we want to enjoy life. But we thought it'd be cool today to talk a little bit about our training philosophies. You know, obviously throughout the year, our focus has changed, right? We're not always in season. We're not always in the preseason portion. If you're going by like a textbook definition of the training calendar. So in the high school setting, a lot of those change pretty frequently. And with that, some of our priorities are going to change, right? Athletes need different things. Athlete A may need body recomp this offseason. Athlete B may need to gain weight. Athlete C might be in a good spot from a body comp standpoint, but they just need to get a little stronger. So our focuses shift based off what we're talking about when we are in a calendar. But there's also some training non-negotiables that are going to be present throughout the year. So we thought it'd be a good episode and a good little conversation to kind of start leading up the wrap-in portions of just George and I talking at you to talk a little bit of training philosophy and training mindset when it comes to that stuff. So George, kick us off. What, like when you're talking about your training, what are some of those things that, whether it's football or other athletes, what are some of those training philosophies that are non-negotiable for you guys?
So inside of training, I think the one thing I always tell kids and coaches is I want to be the fastest, most explosive, most violent team, no matter what the field is. I don't care if it's tennis, we do train some of our tennis kids, and that's how I want us to look. You know, when I got here 7 years ago, it was more about how can I give us an edge? We're not the biggest teams we play against. Like, if you look at us when we walk out at pregame in a lot of our games, you're like, these kids are about to get stomped. And I mean, as coaches, you walk out there and you're like, God dang, like this does not look great. But then, we have confidence in the way we play, and you go out and we're able to compete against teams that are bigger than us. As long as we're executing, we're able to compete against some of these teams because we do have that mindset of being the fastest, most explosive team on the field. So generally that tends to help us out because it gives us a little bit of an X factor, And so our training looks a little bit different than probably like your traditional, what a lot of people have is like strength training in their head, because it always in the back of my head, no matter what the season is, if this isn't getting us more violent, I think we need to figure out something else to be doing.
Yeah. And I think similarly, we are very much an O-line and D-line driven football team. We want to win the battle in the trenches. And so a lot of our training doesn't necessarily correlate to kind of normal or like what standard might look like. We do a lot of things like our purpose and our goal within our training program is to own the fourth quarter. So that's reflected in how we train. Now, saying that's a little strange because in 11 of our 13 football games this year, we jumped on teams early. And our starters didn't play or only played the first half or less. So that's a little weird. But we train in a way that our purpose is to take over the fourth quarter and to dominate the fourth quarter. So those, like having that as a mindset, I think every coach needs to select like what is their goal? Where is the one, if you could pick one thing within the context of your game to dominate, what would that be and why? So that way, like you have a clear set of convictions, and then everything else from a programming perspective stems from that answer, right? Yeah. Like for you guys, speed and violence and all that, like you have a specific set of beliefs, and now you can build training based off the identity of what you guys are going to try to match.
Yeah, so many people want to be a part of like a training system, right? And we almost miss the kind of what we were talking about the other day, like the context part. Like people miss like, okay, that's cool. You can run whatever you want to run. You can run juggernaut, you can run Olympic lifting cycles, you can run 5-3-1, you can, I mean, any of these, you can run them. But if you don't have the lens behind it, it doesn't, you're not accomplishing anything outside of running somebody else's program because there's nothing, maybe like a mentality behind it or a culture behind the way you train. We miss that part just by picking and choosing these systems that we want to run because it should be a lot more broad than that when we're talking about like how we need to train because we take in the context of our team.
Yeah, like I'm naturally a in anytime anybody I talk to, I'll tell them I'm naturally like a West Side conjugate Louis Simmons type structure to our program, but that doesn't mean I subscribe to everything that Louis Simmons ever said within his training because there's context and there's things that we have to apply it to what we do. Just love in my experience when our teams train, I've seen the way that our kids can gravitate to that training model, like heavy speed, heavy, waving our speed work and our accommodating resistance. And I love the mindset that it builds to that, but I'm going to adapt it to the identity of our team. If our coach comes to me and says, hey, we just graduated four of our five offensive linemen, and he says next year we want to go to a 5-wide system. Okay, well, I'm going to ask the questions like, what are the demands that you think are going to change? Like the tempo of how we play. What are you going to ask of our O-line that's different from last year? So that way we can match training up to the demands of what they're going to be asked. But we're still going to train in a specific way that's tailored to that thing or that belief or that principle. And that's once you can answer that question, I think a lot of training, whether you're talking about like your flow Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or whether you talk week over week or cycle over cycle, your training gets a lot more clear.
Mhm. Mhm. And you keep going back to the, like, O-line guys, and look, we probably did a better job of it this year with, like, being able to lean on people, but, like, that isn't like, we wanna be able to run the ball when we want to, but I also need that right guard to be able to go block a safety in open space because 'cause we're freaking slinging the ball around too, you know? So but how do you with the differences in our offensive philosophies, I guess, in football, what does, like, this time of year, this early off season with your big boys, like, what does that look like?
See, like this is why we're really good for each other when it comes to a podcast because you set up segues way more naturally than I do, right? Like my thought process, I'm sitting here like, all right, how do we switch and start talking about that? And then you just tee it up, you tee it up really good. No, and that goes back to what I was saying. I think I said it in the intro. Who knows? But where there's certain training principles and philosophies that never and qualities that never leave our training program, regardless of what we're like when we are in the calendar. So like we're still gonna sprint, we're still gonna jump, we're still gonna do all these things, but our focus isn't necessarily right now to get you faster. So like when you're talking about your big boys in space, they need to be able to increase. Like we need to be able to increase their top speed and their acceleration in order to support the ability to go get in front of those guys and at least make that guy have to run around me to go get the ball carrier, right? But that's not necessarily like it's January when we're recording this, so like that's not going to be the focus right now. We're going to do that when we start getting warmer weather and when we start getting closer to actual spring ball. This time of year, like right now we're focusing on those recomp guys. We've got a lot of several younger guys that just need to they're big. Like we've got one kid who's like 6'4", 330, and we got another one that's like 6'2", like 325. And like they're both
Crazy.
massive human beings, and like they are pretty good football players already, but they're carrying around so much weight, like we need to get them
Can't move.
down. Yeah, so we've got to make some changes there. So their training looks a little bit different than everybody else's training because we're going to add some more like metabolic circuits to them. We're going to do like in season, one of our favorite conditionings that we do is bike sprints. So like a 10-second sprint, 50-second, I call it jog. And we'll do anywhere from 5 to 10 reps of that, depending on like how many sets we got programmed and what our week looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But those guys that need recomp are going to do that too this time of year, not because of the conditioning perspective, but simply because their heart rate, it's going to spike their heart rate to the areas that we want. And then now you're going to get a hormonal response that's going to correlate to like increase in growth factor, increase in HGH, all those things that are good things that are going to help us with our recomp and our recovery and all those things. We need to do those now. But other kids that are trying to gain weight, we're not do that for because we're trying to conserve calories, right? We're trying to allocate our energy to where we need them to be. Does that answer the question we were talking about?
Yeah. So, but with adding that stuff in, so their training block kind of look similar. Is that in addition to what you guys are
Mm.
already doing? Or is that like a completely separate, are those recomp guys on something completely separate during the session? Or is that like in addition to, hey, you guys got to circle back around and come get that bike work in?
Gotcha. Yeah, I think so. We do it how we have it kind of set up is at the end. There's some extra time, and we leave that time. Usually, it's about 20 minutes
How much time do you have
to
total?
do. We have 90 minutes total. So our guys are really good. Like they know that when the bell rings, like the start class, that first whistle's blowing to start our warm up. So they need to be changed. They need to be ready when that. So that helps maximize our time too. So whether you're getting dropped off by a parent, you're riding the bus, you're driving yourself, like, I got to get to the field house and get ready because first whistle blows right when class starts. So that usually leaves us with about 20 minutes at the end to play with, and then 5 minutes to get dressed out at the end. So that 20 minutes, like if you finish your work in 10, you got 15 to dress out. So that usually gets guys focused on what their goal is to get it done. But we can bucket the kids with that time. So our kids that are in a good ratio, like they don't necessarily need to gain weight, they are really strong. We can do plyometrics with them. We can do things like unilateral. We can do lateral plyometrics. We can do a lot of like Matt McKinnis Watson stuff where we're talking about like deep tier stuff. We can get like quote unquote fancy with those guys. The guys that need to gain to work on mobility, they can foam roll and then do some more mobility stuff that we have because I've got like a paper of just, hey, here are some mobility exercises of what you can pick, ankles, hips, whatever we're talking about. Go do these exercises. Those recomp guys can do those bike sprints in there or a different metabolic circuit that we do. Shout out Tyler Franklin. So there's a lot of options, and we can use that time based off to really tailor their needs. And again, it goes back to the fact that we have 90 something minutes every day. But even if like at the middle school, I don't have that. Like I've got them for 45, 50 minutes total, and we got to change in and change out in that time. So like that looks a little bit different there. And for me, I sacrifice a whole day and I say, hey, on Thursdays, we're going to do these things that are going to address our needs. And those are where like some open-ended play games come into it, or some more like doing a metabolic circuit with those kids because those kids need that as well, regardless of what their body composition is.
For a different
So
reason.
things like that.
Like they got to get
Yes.
volume built up,
Yes.
that,
Work capacity.
yeah, it gets missed, but like just the ability to do work and the ability to like both of those guys are doing the same thing. Your middle schoolers and then your recomp guys can be doing the same thing, but for very different reasons,
For sure.
depending on where they are in a training age. Well, that's probably good.
Yeah, so we leave those time blocks to really use that as ways to address kids' needs, and give them what the kids need, and kind of, I guess you could say, individualized training within
Yeah.
that aspect.
So that last block, when you guys are doing that, do you have any guys that are just like mass guys? Like they got to put on mass, typically like your skill kids, your corners, your receivers. Do you have anybody just getting pumped during that last 20 minutes?
Yep, we can use that time for that reason, especially like on our upper body days. We really leave that open to go say like, hey, go chase a pump. So I don't program a lot of like biceps and triceps, shoulders and stuff like that. Not because I don't love them, but because we prioritize time. And I know a lot of our guys are going to go to the gym anyway, or go like to the basement work out with dad. And I say like, hey, go chase the pump when you do those things. Like go have fun when you go to the gym and train outside. Don't go max your squat. Don't go max your clean. Don't go do all that stuff. Trust that when we're here. But when you go to the gym, I want you to have fun and go do back day, as long as we don't have bench or squat the next day. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no matter how many times we say that, they come in on a bench and they're like, I crushed my chest last night. I'm like, well, suck. Here we go.
Don't care.
Like that's your fault. Your
You
workout
know our
was in
training
your
structure.
app already. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You messed that up yourself. So you better buckle
Yep.
up because the day's gonna be a ride. We got 8 sets
We're
of
gonna have
4.
a great time. Yeah. You're crushed by set 4.
Yeah, I'm like, Coach, this hurts. You guess you're just doubling up your bench press because we're about to get jacked. But I do the same thing with our guys. Is like we don't maybe once every few weeks, throw them a bone. Every young male likes chasing a pump, and every now and then, throw them a bone. But I tell them the same thing. I'm like, go do your bro stuff elsewhere. I have an hour block with you 3 times a week. Like we got to be pretty dialed in here. But every now and then, right, you're not losing anything one day a week, So if we get through like our bench press reps on our upper body day and we're like, you know what, throw the auxiliaries to the wind, let's chase a pump, put it on the whiteboard real quick. And, it fires them up. They love it. But I tell them all the time the same thing. I'm like, go get your bro stuff done outside of here because we don't have enough time, most of it, to sit there and say, hey, let's put in 4 sets of biceps today and 4 sets of tries. I'm like, man, y'all gotta figure that out elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
But no, I
in
think
that
that frees you up for
varsity
that
group,
time.
like you have, is that first period or first block, whatever?
Yes.
Okay, so do you guys do anything beforehand to make sure like they're fueled up? Do you guys have snacks sitting out? Or are they just expected to be like, hey, y'all better eat something before you come in?
So we do feed them. We've got things like and it's not amazing food, but it's calories, right? Like we've got like oatmeal and grits, I think is what it is, available for them before school. And then all summer long, we'll put that stuff out about a like half hour before kids start showing up. So then they have access to that before we do our summer workouts. We're trying to do some stuff where like we have peanut butter and jelly available to them in the summertime. Usually three of the 4 days that we train, we'll feed them lunch before we send them home. So we're pretty active in trying to give them stuff. We have things like we have a fridge just filled with chocolate milk and stuff, so they can come in and grab
Yeah.
one or two.
You just don't want to do that beforehand.
Yeah, so they can come in and grab one on their way out, or like when they're going to class after they've changed out. So those
Yeah.
we've got some of those resources there for them.
Yeah, that's probably something that misses, I think, too, especially at the high school level. And there's only so much we can control at the high school level too. It's not. I know you've been in the college world. I've been there. Like, you kind of you take for granted at first when it's like, oh, look at all these bars we have sitting out and all these snacks and all this drink, and like we can get kids fueled up before they start. And you get to the high school level, and there's only so much you can control because no matter what, if your session starts at 6:45, you got some kid rolling in at 6:44 that was like, crap, I woke up 10 minutes ago. And it's like, all
Yeah,
right, here we go. I try to keep some simple sugar stuff just so they're not going to die during the lift or be smoked, but that's something that we kind of miss. I know we do. And, it's a ongoing, like, back and forth trying to figure out what the best thing to do is. We've started doing, I can't test them before, but we've started doing like a quasi breakfast check. I tell them they have to bring something. They have to bring something with them to eat after the lift. Because the way we're set up, they go 6:45 to 7:45. They have a one period, and then they go to what we call break, and it's like 20 minutes. But so I'm like, if we get done training at 7:45, you're not eating again until 9:15. We have missed just this window of calories. And so every
yeah,
morning they have to come and pop by my office and be like, hey, this is what I brought. They check their name off on the door. And that's kind of how the last couple years, we've been able to steal some of those, steal calories here and there, that we weren't getting beforehand because they'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to eat at break. And I'm like, we've gone an hour and a half now. Like, I don't, not that it's bad, right? But it's something we've just wasted time on. Kids are like, I want to gain weight. And then they don't eat from 6:30 until 9:30, and you're like, well, that doesn't sound like you want to gain
yeah.
weight.
And we have a I don't know about you guys, but we have a large amount of free and reduced lunch kids that are coming in. So like they're the ones that qualify for lunch, either cheap or free. And
Yeah.
so we try to one of the resources that we've tapped into in our community. There's a so both Panera and Publix have to throw away all of their baked goods after a certain
Hmm.
amount of time, and usually like it's a lot. They donate a lot of those on the weekends to
Yeah.
food pantries, like local food pantries. We've connected with them and they've started giving stuff to us so that way we could give it to our kids that are on free and reduced lunch. So now those kids are rolling in, like, here's some extra calories to take with you. Like, it's still good. You can still eat it for a
Hmm.
couple days, but like, and sometimes like
Yeah.
it's like bagels or it's bread, like it's other stuff that we can use to like just augment some of those calories that those kids aren't getting. But
Hmm.
those are things I've even gone as far as like we've talked to our local our local Kroger about trying to get something set up where they sell us stuff for peanut butter and jelly at cost. So like whenever they make their normal order, they just buy a couple extra cases of peanut butter, a couple extra cases of jelly, a couple extra cases of bread, and we buy that cost off of them. But in exchange for us putting them as a scoreboard sponsor, so like
Hmm.
they can write it off as our tax write off or as a tax write off as if they're giving us more, but we're just buying it at cost. So like they're not getting hurt by buying it for us because we're paying cost for it. But then they can also have that as a benefit to them for being sponsored.
I tell people all the time, our kids, I'm like, peanut butter and jellies are the number one hack for gaining weight because
Yes.
you can load up 700 calories in a hurry. I remember being at Marshall. for an internship one summer, and we would make peanut butter and jellies every day. And we would just make cases and cases and cases of peanut butter and jellies. It wasn't like, hey, here's an Uncrustable that's like prepackaged. It's the
Yeah.
6 interns sitting there just like creating an assembly line,
15
just
loaves of
freaking
bread.
hammering. Oh gosh. And we got it from the day old bakery store. So
Mhm.
Huntington, West Virginia is awesome as far as like a community. And they're like here, because this is going to the Thundering Herd. But like, Coach Sinclair walks in with just a pallet of bread, and we're like, oh gosh, here we go. Like, and
Yeah.
then you just a tub of peanut butter, not like the little like pretty GIF things, like tub of jelly, and we're just like freaking 2 hours of just slamming and spreading peanut butter and jelly. It's a unreal hat, right? You add 2 to 3 peanut butter and jellies in your day. You've added, 1,500, 2,000 calories, and you're like, yeah, cool. Don't look at the serving size. Just spread that crap on there, and let's get some calories in.
Now the real question is, and I'm going to judge you based off your answer. When you're making a peanut butter and jelly for yourself or your kids, do you put peanut butter on both sides or just one
Peanut butter on both sides. If I'm trying to gain
of the
weight,
bread?
peanut butter on both sides.
Yeah. I do it all the time, whether I'm gaining weight or not.
No, no, a big like hearty, or if I want one of those like honking, like I need some like good food. Like it's a peanut butter on both sides today. But most of the time, I'm like for the kids when I make it for our kids, it's like peanut butter on one side. So
Wrong. I made the mistake of telling Ridge the other day that he could, because he's super super skinny, and we're trying to get him to gain some weight. And now that he's like almost to middle school, I don't want him showing up like your dad's a strength coach. You can't be the lightest one in your grade. So we're trying to get him to gain weight and incentivize it. So I told him he could have. He needs to eat ice cream every night before he goes to bed, bro.
mm-hmm.
In the last 3 weeks, I've bought 6 of those little like things of ice cream, and he'll just sit there with the
Yeah,
spoon and the whole thing, and he'll just sit there,
crush it.
and we're watching a movie or whatever, and he'll crush like half a pint or half a container of ice cream, and
Yeah,
he's like, "You told me to gain weight." I'm like, all right, yeah, I did. All right, I guess I can't be mad at you.
I
Well,
remember
one of the
being
things
in
like,
like I remember being, and I tell our kids this here is like gaining weight. I'm like 2 bananas, 2 scoops of ice cream, whole milk, helping of peanut butter, whatever that looks like, couple scoops of protein powder, and blend that crap up. And I'm like, that's how you gain weight. Just how many calories can I stuff in my face? And so many kids, like, they're worried about the 6 pack because of social media. I'm like, stop. Like, that's not going to help you play football. Like, the amount of people
we'll
that
get
can play
that back
football with
for
a
you
six
before
pack
this
is
off
not
season.
very high. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, right now, I'm like, freaking slam the calories. Go to Red Sam up the street and just house fried rice and chicken. And drink this giant mass gainer smoothie and just keep eating.
yeah.
It's a lot easier to
The
lose weight than it is gain weight.
Oh yeah, but yeah, especially like this time of year, like it's cold virtually everywhere. Like you can eat, you don't have to go do all these outside activities and all this stuff. So like, go ahead, slam those calories, do everything you need. And a big hack is eat that. So we had a kid, one of our receivers that just early enrolled. He was having trouble maintaining weight in season, and we were having a conversation about like, how do I do this? I said, all right, just make one of these shakes every night, and it was ice cream, peanut butter, protein powder,
Uh-huh.
and fruit. I said, drink that right before bed, and then wake up in the morning and make sure that you drink a glass of water and eat breakfast like immediately. He's like,
Yeah.
that's gonna work. I said, yeah, it's gonna help you like give your body something else to burn, and you're loading up on calories right before bed. And then sure enough, like his weight started to creep back up, simply because like he was having that right before bed and the timing of it
Hmm.
too. But just it's about getting those calories in. But what I was kind of like bringing the conversation back to like what we were talking about. For instance, for us, yeah, I know, right? Um, for us, we do a lot of the things, like a lot of our systems and a lot of our structure is the same year round. It's not like we transition from off season to preseason or transition to like a power focus in our training. We just like we have our systems and we have our way of training. We just might start doing things a little bit differently. We're spending more times in other
Hmm.
qualities. Like
Yeah.
for example, like I mentioned earlier, we sprint year round. So like right now we sprint, we time 5 and 10 yard lead, fly tens, once or twice a week, depending on the week. And then once we get to about March, like mid March, late March, when the weather starts to turn, that shift, those distances become a little bit further. And then once we get to April,
Hmm.
it becomes twice a week. And now we'll have like
Yeah.
a 10 yard fly one day, and we'll have like a 20 yard or 30 yard lead on another.
Hmm.
So like we'll start building that and changing that. So we'll shift those focus. Do you guys
Hmm.
have anything that you guys do within your training that is similar, or like how do you specifically or like intentionally make shifts to emphasize those goals at different periods in your training?
Yeah, I should probably be a lot better, like, system-wise. I'm not the best at being like, "Hey, this is the system we run." Mainly because I think there's so much variance, especially in high school. I think it's so much of, like, multi-sport or this kid's doing this or, "Hey, coach, I gotta go do this." I had a 7-on-7 tournament this weekend. I played a baseball tournament, and I'm like, I I don't know the system, but I have general outlines for like what I want to get done at certain periods. And so right now, we're still sprinting, we're accelerating and testing that twice a week. We're still doing our long distance sprint once a week. Because I think that stuff's important. I really do. If I say I want to be fast and violent, I can't not sprint year round. But we're also like the volume on their legs right now is a lot in the weight room. And not necessarily like we're not banging out 3 sets of 15 or anything, but we're hitting 8 sets of 4, 8 sets of 3. Last week we built up on a 5-3-1 to try to get some sort of training max around it. And so to answer your question, yes and no. Like I have a general outline of what I want, January to March. If we're not touching something heavy, January to March, like when else are we going to touch it in our training? Because now when we get back from spring break, we have early spring break. We go like first week of March. Like now it's like, hey, we either you're getting ready for state track meet or you're getting ready for spring ball or both. Like it's those three things. And so the thing that scares the crap out of me in our schedule is always spring ball, mainly due to the scrimmage, because the scrimmage happens 1 week after the state track meet. And if we've had a catastrophic lower body injury, it's happened in the spring game. And it's mainly just because those guys don't get the lateral change of direction or the agility
Mhm.
or like they lose that trying to get ready for track. And it's not a bad thing, but that's something we're working really hard on these last couple of years is how do we make sure our guys are ready to go for that? Because we're a small school. And so like if our football team is fast, our track team is going to be fast. And most of our football players are running track, especially the skill kids. And so I can't have them like we lost 2 kids for the season last year in the spring game. And when you watch the film, it's nothing crazy. Like they're running somebody down and get bumped, not even like taken out, get bumped, and they just have to like reestablish and base, but they weren't ready to do it,
They haven't
And
done
so
that. Yeah.
no, they haven't done it. And so it's like, how do we've changed some stuff up this year where we're going to kind of dose that in more. But like you said earlier, every team is a little bit different, every group. And so I think the systems are good, but I think of it more in like an outline of like what I want to get done. But, last year's team, we were really experienced. We were coming into a senior heavy class. They had a ton of training time. And so we were able to do some different stuff with them because we were like, hey, let's go chase some performance right now. This year's class, like, we're losing a ton of minutes. We're going to have a ton of upcoming juniors play that haven't had a lot of like time. And so, but all those kids, they got to get bigger. They're fast, they're athletic. Like, I'm really happy with them as a athleticism base, but I'm not super happy with the way they look, because they're not ready to go play varsity football. It just is what it is. And so I tell them all the time, I'm like, hey, you guys, we got a kid that's a DB, slot receiver type kid, and he can fly. But I told him the other day, I'm like, hey, you want to know what's really difficult, no matter how fast you are, is playing varsity football at 160 pounds.
Mhm.
It's tough no matter what you're doing. So like trying to emphasize to them, hey, what we're trying to get done this time of year, we're gonna accelerate heavy, we're gonna squat heavy. The other day we were cleaning and we worked up to some heavy singles, throwing some weight around, but I think of it almost like January to March, March to May, June to July, August to November, and then December is its own kind of little world for us because we finished the week before Thanksgiving. So December, we really only have like 7 training sessions with them after we get back from Thanksgiving before finals. And so like it's its own kind of standalone thing, but that's kind of how I think of it in my head of like, if we're going to put mass on and we're going to get size put on very intentionally, it's going to be now to spring break. And then when we get back from spring break, that shift towards the game starts to change a little bit.
Yeah,
That was a
and that's
long-winded
something
answer.
that's no, you're good because I think that highlights the concept that we each have. I call them preparation minutes. Like there's a certain amount of preparation minutes every team, every sport, every school has allocated toward their development. And everything you do, whether it includes like for us, we try to include in season. We have film time that we'll use in first period, or we'll have a team meeting in first period. So like everything that you have, or your goals of where you are in your performance and what you're trying to do with your team should be a direct reflection of where you're spending those performance minutes, right? So if you're
Hmm.
trying to get bigger and faster, stronger, or bigger and stronger, then your weight room performance minutes are going to be chewed up a little bit more. If our goal is now to get faster, we need to chew up more minutes using actually sprinting. If we're working on
Hmm.
transitioning some of those track guys back to football, they should probably chew up a little bit more time with change of direction and deceleration and all of those other qualities to make sure they're safe, right? So it's about how we allocate those performance minutes and being able to shift and flow within each week and within each cycle of how we're spending those minutes, almost like a bank account, right? Like you have a
Hmm.
certain number of dollars you have to spend, and here's my budget, and here are the things that I have to spend on. Well, how am I going to allocate my funds? It's the same concept when it comes to like our developmental calendar and how we focus about our goals. But
Yeah.
kind
And
of
I think,
to put a
you
bow
know,
on everything,
that,
I think we're in a pretty good training spot in the episode to lead into what we talked about for like set 4 or for episode 4 and 5.
yeah, yeah.
I think to kind of put the bow on this one, I think we've talked about a lot of really good stuff. And before we start having guests on, we talked about having like a episode where it's just me, and then George has his own episode of just him, where we're going through our training outline. And just recording that and releasing that, so that way anybody that listens, you guys have an understanding of where we're coming from, how we think from a training perspective, from a deep dive, not just here are those things that I value and here's what we do in our program, but here's how I actually program a week or a cycle, and then how it like builds on each other. Because I think those are important, as you guys, as anyone listening hears our conversations with other coaches. I think that stuff really matters. So, George, any thoughts or anything you want to add to that?
Nah, it's been good. I think those to give you guys frame from how we operate, and because even though me and Dan agree on a lot of training stuff, we're gonna set stuff up differently because of constraints we have, and even just like our thought processes. So going back to that, I think that'll be a really good frame before we jump into guest. What is cool is on the guest side, we already got some people confirmed. We don't have dates yet for recording or anything, but we got some pretty cool guests that I think are pretty cool. Cool thing about a podcast is we can say who we want to interview. And I think we have a really good base going. That post we put out the other day it blew up, which was really, really good for us. A ton of content that we can get made there on top of a list we already had going. One, it'll be really good to set up individually what that frame looks like. And then two, I think it'll be really good for us to give everybody what we value moving into the guest, kind of that way we can have everybody has an idea where we're going. It's not just a random pop in.
And hopefully by the time we have guests, I've got a better camera going. So I'm gonna try to get a webcam for everybody.
Yeah.
See my ugly face
Yeah.
in 3D
Get
or high def.
webcam and a mic hooked up, and we'll be in
That's right.
business.
So, man, well, I appreciate
Cool.
you and for taking your time, and we'll talk again soon.